Hi there. Later, Daddy, don't drop the soap. First though, an out non-binary lawmaker claims they've been targeted with transphobia at work. 2 new ends on a council in Massachusetts in America and says there's a discriminatory and toxic culture. This is how they confronted their colleagues about it.
Mr. Chairman, under your leadership, I have felt unsafe around this council body. I have faced transphobia with being misgendered and recently learned that I have been dehumanized to a point where I'm being referred to as it by my colleagues on this council.
One person's admitted to misgendering but says it was an accident. 2's the first non-binary lawmaker in the history of Massachusetts. An extreme right-wing online network linked to a fatal shooting outside an LGBTQ+ bar is now deemed a terror organisation by the US. Might be a clue in the name, Terrorgram, which is accused of promoting violent white supremacy. America says the group was involved when 2 people were shot dead close to a queer venue in Slovakia back in 2022. And the Midsummer Festival, Australia's top queer arts and culture celebration, has kicked off in Melbourne. Loads going on over the next 3 weeks, including music, theatre, film screenings and the annual Pride March. Also a Queer Olympics and something called Daddy, Don't Drop the Soap, a homage to LGBTQ+ history. Hi there. Later, a clean slate for Laverne Cox. First though, 3 churches in New York have joined forces for a big gay wedding event. It saw a number of LGBTQ+ couples tie the knot, spurred on by fears marriage equality and queer rights are under threat in the US. All to do with the country being under new ownership, that of an orange convicted felon and sexual abuser.
It is important that we are doing it now, and support for queer and trans people is something that's going to be required over the long haul. With the upcoming administration, there will be threats and changes, but that's not all going to happen, and so the more we can do in these first couple of months, the better.
Shari Halliday-Kwan from one of those 3 churches, the First Unitarian Church of Rochester, speaking to Spectrum News. The event was free, and as a Scot, I'm down for that, with donations of flowers, photography and cake from local businesses. Next, a response from the makers of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, after claims the role-playing game might be banned in Saudi Arabia because of LGBTQ+ content. Creative director Daniel Vavra hasn't addressed that specifically in a statement referencing a bizarre culture war, but he does say every character's in the game for a reason and players can make whatever decisions they want for them. It's due out in a fortnight. And Laverne Cox stars in a new comedy on Prime about a transgender woman rebuilding a relationship with her estranged father. Clean Slate sees her play Desiree Slate, who returns to a hometown in Alabama after a life in New York's upended. The trans actor co-created the 8-part series, which drops on February 5th. Hi there. Later, book bans in Myanmar. First though, same-sex marriage is legally recognised in Thailand from today. It means gay couples get the same rights as the straights, including over property, adoption and inheritance. The country's civil code now says marriage is between individuals, not just a man and a woman. Bess Chitsinapong Nichuna is a queer activist there. She tells the BBC change is way overdue.
This law actually passed amid the changing, societal value, societal acceptance, especially the young generation, where we have seen other country has passed this such law. And we think that why our country have not passed yet.
Thailand's the first country in Southeast Asia to get same-sex marriage. As expected, the return of an orange convicted felon and sexual abuser as US president sees transgender people under attack. Says it's now official policy there are only 2 genders, male and female, impacting, amongst other things, official documents like passports and visas. Government diversity and inclusion schemes are also being scrapped. America's biggest queer rights group, the Human Rights Campaign, says LGBTQ plus people won't be intimidated and will fight back. And the military group governing Myanmar in Southeast Asia has banned 7 books with queer themes. Its information ministry says the titles aren't accepted by society, they're shameless, and can mislead the thinking and feelings of young people. Being gay is illegal there. The book's publishers will be prosecuted for putting out obscene literature without permission. Hi there. Later, why an out gay ice skater's golden. First though, I don't want this podcast to be overwhelmed by the orange convicted felon and sexual abuser who's US president again. Pride Daily's meant to be a global thing, but I did want to include this. It's the bishop who's called him out to his face from the pulpit during a prayer service in Washington. All hail the Right Reverend Marianne Edgar Budd, responding to the new administration's many anti-queer and especially anti-trans policies and hate speech.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives.
Bishop Budd's been labelled nasty by the orange convicted felon and sexual abuser. At least she's not an orange convicted felon and sexual abuser, though. It's the Midsummer Pride March next week in Melbourne, Australia, but the local police force won't now be participating. After violence at last year's event between officers from Victoria Police and protesters, formal workplace uniforms are banned. Organisers say they can be triggering, the force calling this a backward step for inclusion. An out gay ice skater, Paul Poirier, and his partner have won gold at Canada's National Championships. Makes it a 4th for him and Piper Gillies, boosting their chances of competing in the 2026 Winter Olympics in Italy. The pair managed level 4s on the Twizzles, and you don't know what that means either. Hi there. Later, what Daniel Craig's feeling glad about. We'll start with this though. The first out gay president in the European Union says woke may have gone too far. Latvia's Edgars Rinkevičs has been talking about the situation in America, with LGBTQ plus rights very much in the crosshairs there. He tells Channel 4 News the message from voters in the US elections was clear.
I do hope that we will respect basic rights everywhere, but I think that also when you get quotas and when you get some kind of affirmative actions, then other people believe that they are discriminated. So I think that those things are very sensitive.
Rinkevičs came out on social media in 2014 and he's been a big champion of queer rights. A huge rise in calls to LGBTQ plus crisis lines in America off the back of its anti-queer president returning to office. Suicide prevention organisation The Trevor Project reports an almost 50% increase compared to its usual daily numbers. The Rainbow Youth Project's also been inundated. The existence of trans people is now officially denied by the administration, with diversity and inclusion programmes scrapped. An LGBTQ plus advocacy group, GLAD's, released the nominations for its annual media awards. Among the hopefuls, you've got Queer, starring Daniel Craig, up for Outstanding Film, with Billie Eilish in the running to be named Top Music Artist. The awards are dished out in Los Angeles in March. They honour fair, accurate and inclusive representations of queer people. We're also on your smart speaker. Implore it to play the latest Pride Daily. I'm Kev McGraw. See you next week.